A soft rustle of maple leaves drifts across the park, their edges catching the late afternoon sun like flickers of copper. Joggers' footsteps slap gently against the asphalt path that winds between picnic lawns and a glassy pond. And somewhere beyond a lilac hedge a swing set creaks in lazy counterpoint to distant laughter. It's the kind of ordinary weekday scene nobody marks on a calendar, an anonymous Tuesday sliding toward dusk, until a sudden gust of wind snaps the lull wide open. At the crest of the park's only incline, a lightweight wheelchair, its canvas seat flapping, teeters for a breathless second on the verge of gravity. An empty wheelchair should never look alive. Yet in that instant it seems animated by the gust itself. Almost curious, as if testing how fast it could fly. Then the chair tips forward, bearings whirring, and hurtles down the sloped path directly toward the pond's wooden dock. A gray-haired tourist clutching caramel corn spots the runaway first and gasps so sharply pigeons scatter from her feet. A teenager jerks a wireless earbud free and shouts. But the word dissolves inside the wind. On a nearby bench a pair of college students glance up from a shared tablet, each registering the surreal sight of an unpiloted chair racing past. Their brains crunch the physics, speed, slope, pond, collision, yet their bodies lag behind the math. Slow to leave the bench. 60 yards away on the jogging circuit, Devon Mallory pounds along the outer lane, earbuds humming a motivational anthem. A rescued blue brindle Pitbull named Koda Lopez at Devon's hip, tethered by a quick-release bungee leash clipped to the runner's belt. Koda's tongue sachets with easy confidence. 9 months of dawn runs have tuned the dog's stride to Devon's cadence. Two athletes breathing as one. But over the pounding rhythm Devon catches a collective rip in the park's ambience, a fusion of gasp, shout, and squeal, and his peripheral vision snags a flash of chrome wheels spinning too fast to belong. Devon's heartbeat spikes, not from exertion but recognition. That wheelchair is nobody's joyride. It's a torsion spring of lethal momentum aimed straight at the pond. He yanks out an earbud and veers off course, skidding on fallen petals. The bungee leash snaps taut as Koda feels the sudden change in vector. The dog's ears spear forward. Muscles bunch, eyes tracking the wheeled threat. Instinct overrides training. Even before Devon's fingers reach for the carabiner, Koda drops his center of gravity, shoulders coiling like a vaulting pole before takeoff. The quick release snaps. Koda is a silver bullet fired from a living bow. His paws find traction in the gritty surface, each bound telescoping him closer to the runaway chair. Devon lunges behind, but his lungs already know he's forfeited the footrace. Only Koda owns that fraction of a second where fate still balances. The wheelchair rattles over drainage grills, gathering feral speed. It will reach the pond's rim in maybe 6 heartbeats. Behind it, dust kicks up from Koda's sprint, a swirling comet tail of grit. The dog's hackles flatten under the aerodynamic rush. His focus narrows to the rear right wheel, an exposed spoke pattern. The perfect purchase point. If he misjudges the angle he could flip beneath the chassis, risking a shattered spine. There is no rehearsal, only the irrevocable present. Time, cheater that it is, slows for everyone watching. The teenager records on a phone that trembles in his grip, framing shaky vertical footage. The gray-haired tourist half raises her popcorn bag like a talisman against disaster. Devon, hardly breathing, counts strides not in meters but in what-ifs. What if Koda misses? What if the chair hits the dock at that angle? What if the occupant, where is the occupant, was just carried off for a restroom break a minute earlier? Koda draws even with the flying wheelchair and commits to the maneuver. He sidesteps so close his ribcage grazes the wheel rim. Then, in a move that will later mesmerize animal behavior experts, he throws the entire weight of his torso inward, jamming his shoulder between spoke and asphalt. The wheel screams in metallic protest. Koda's claws scrape for purchase. The impact twists his body almost perpendicular. But the friction does its merciful work. Momentum bleeds out in a shriek of rubber. Chair and dog skid together, carving an arcing scar across the pavement until both tilt into a side slide that finally stops inches short of the pond's stone curb. A flock of mallards explodes from the water, wings thundering across the surface. Silence hovers for a crystalline moment, nature inhaling after the storm. Panting, Koda stands. The chair's right wheel spins a final, Feeble revolution before stalling. Devon vaults the last yards. Hands grazing Koda's back as if counting bones that might be broken. The Pitbull's sides rise and fall like bellows. But his eyes shine with curious calm. As though saving a careening wheelchair were an everyday drill. A small cluster of bystanders converges. Someone dials emergency services. Another retrieves the chair's occupant, a middle-aged man named Carlos Alvarez, who returns from a restroom by the Rose Garden to find his mobility device licked with dust and guarded by a pity hero. Carlos' breath leaves him in a whoosh when comprehension strikes. Adrenaline floods his cheeks pink. Tears prickle behind his eyelids. He reaches an uncertain hand toward Koda. Gratitude trembling in every tendon. Koda noses the man's palm, tail offering a tentative wag. A smartphone hovers overhead capturing the handshake silhouette. Man and dog framed against rippling water. The sun, now leaning low, casts a lantern gold arc across the pond, and in its reflection the chair, the dog, and the thankful stranger fuse into one tableau of improbable rescue. Devon acknowledges none of this yet. He palpates Koda's ribcage, checking for fractures. There are bruises blooming beneath the fur. Surely, perhaps cracked ribs. But the Pitbull pushes his snout under Devon's chin, emitting a huff that sounds embarrassingly like a chuckle. Relief geysers inside Devon so abruptly he almost laughs and cries in the same breath. Sirens approach in the distance. But the park's ordinary Tuesday has already broken across headlines. Social media will chew and echo this footage within the hour. But for the core witnesses here, nothing digital can replicate the visceral beat where a dog outsprinted catastrophe and stopped a runaway life short of tragedy. Minutes later, EMTs kneel beside Koda, scanning vital signs. Devon hovers like a mother hawk. But the EMT's grin splits wide. "This dog's tougher than half the linebackers have patched up," she says, scribbling vitals on a chart. Still, protocol dictates a veterinary check. A cruiser inches onto the grass. Lights revolving in silent tribute. A park ranger interviews witnesses. And their narratives weave the same thread. An animal's split-second choice to fling itself against a hurtling object. Wagering bone against physics. As twilight inks the sky, Devon watches Koda loaded into an animal ambulance designed for search and rescue K9s. Koda's leash is now a gentle ribbon snaked through Devon's fingers. The connection humming stronger than any bungee cord. The runner climbs into the passenger seat beside the vet tech, because leaving is not an option. Park visitors applaud as the vehicle pulls away, their claps fluttering like celebratory sparklers in the cooling air. Behind, on the vandal-resistant park bench, a forgotten phone continues recording until its battery dies. Lens fixed on nothing more dramatic than a ripple chasing itself across pond water. Yet that ripple will roll outward overnight. Television anchors, ethics professors, even biomechanical engineers will dissect Koda's tackle in pixelated slow motion, marveling at torque angles and muscle fiber recruitment. But no formula can quantify the uncalculating courage that detonated in one dog's chest when the wind pushed wrong and the world needed a new trajectory. Night settles on the city in broad brushstrokes of indigo and violet. Yet Devon scarcely notices the deepening sky. The animal ambulance thrums beneath him, a low mechanical purr that feels far too calm for the adrenaline still peppering his bloodstream. Beside him, Koda lies on a foam stretcher custom cut for working dogs, an oxygen mask cupping his muzzle with the precision of a jet fighter pilot. Each measured inhale fogs the plastic for half a heartbeat before condensing into droplets along the rim. A vet tech named Abby, bangs tucked beneath a lavender scrub cap, monitors the dog's vitals on a handheld device that glows neon green in the dim cabin. SPO 97%. Heart rate 120 and trending down. Temperature normal. The numbers mean everything and nothing at once to Devon. Yet he clings to them like floats on a stormy sea. The radio at the dashboard squawks to life. Headquarters dispatch relays park ranger chatter. Eyewitness statements corroborate each other down to the detail of Koda's shoulder slamming into the spokes. The operator's voice holds a note just shy of awe. "Copy that," the driver replies, but she flicks Devon a sideways glance in the rear-view mirror. Unspoken assurance passing between strangers who have joined the same orbit around a hero in fur. Faster than Devon expects, the van noses into the lot of Northbridge Emergency Animal Medical Center. Sodium vapor lamps cast luminous halos across the asphalt. A blast of disinfectant and climate-controlled air whooshes out when the rear doors swing open. Two technicians ease Koda onto a rolling gurney, wheels squeaking like startled field mice, and whisk him through sliding glass into triage. Devon follows at a trot, filling out consent forms on a tablet so smudged with fingerprints it looks like modern art. Somewhere between signature lines he realizes his hands are trembling. Tiny aftershocks in the wake of the afternoon quake. The triage bay is bright enough to bleach shadows right off the walls. Overhead, a bank of LED panels glows a chilly sci-fi white, while Abby shaves a patch of Koda's flank to ultrasound for internal hemorrhage. The supervising veterinarian arrives. Drive. Celine Harper, sleeves rolled to the elbow and eyes sharp as sunlight on a scalpel. She palpates each rib with practiced tenderness, feels along the spine for hidden fractures, then swivels a portable X-ray arm into place. The machine hums, a brief flash, and the ghost image blooms on a nearby screen. A dog's skeletal architecture rendered in monochrome elegance. Devon's breath stalls in his throat. Dr. Harper scans the radiograph, finger tracing luminous bones, hairline fissure on the 7th rib. She murmurs at last, no displacement, lungs clear, no pneumothorax. She turns to Devon, allowing a rare, gentle smile. He'll be sore as if he went 12 rounds with a heavyweight. But by the looks of it, your boy dodged anything catastrophic. Relief ripples through Devon's body so suddenly his knees threaten to buckle. He bows his head, one hand finding Koda's paw where IV tubing delivers fluid laced with mild analgesic. The dog responds with a rhythmic wag, slow, deliberate, as though conserving momentum while still wanting to reassure. Paperwork complete and vitals stable. Koda is transferred to recovery. The kennel suite resembles a miniature ICU. Glass-fronted cubicles with warmed floors and self-adjusting humidity. Inside, Koda curls on a quilted pad as a drowsy wave of pain meds seeps into his veins. Devon sits on the vinyl bench outside, forearms on knees, forehead against the cool glass. Sleep hovers airplane high yet refuses to land. Behind him, televisions in the lobby loop the 6-second vertical clip captured by the teenager, the runaway wheelchair. The blur of brindle muscle. The skid, the miracle stop. Reporters dissect every pixel, slowing the footage until individual grains of asphalt and flecks of Koda's saliva become epic set pieces. A banner scrolls at the bottom. Pitbull hero halts wheelchair near pond. Asking, "WHO is this dog?" Devon closes his eyes against the glare. A lifetime ago, shelters had labeled Koda, high energy. Requires experienced handler. Potential flight risk. Only one volunteer believed those labels could be chiseled into something finer. And she had introduced Devon, fresh from a marathon injury, to the pity nobody else could wrangle. They had been paired for a practice jog in the shelter's fenced field. Koda pulled so hard on the line that Devon stumbled. But when he fell, the dog doubled back, nose nudging shoe laces as if tying knots of apology. Devon adopted him that same afternoon. Memory fractures as Dr. Harper materializes in his peripheral vision holding a styrofoam cup. "Chamomile. Extra honey," she says, handing it over. "I stock it for human families who wait." Devon wraps chilled fingers around the cup and mutters gratitude that comes out hoarse. Dr. Harper sits beside him, posture relaxed yet poised for any pager vibrato. "You know," she begins, eyes never leaving the bank of monitors above the kennels. "Working dogs roll through here with mission injuries all the time. Torn ligaments, heat exhaustion, snake bites. But intention, willingness to risk damage for someone else, that still stops me cold." A nurse appears with a clipboard of additional release forms. Dr. Harper signs off on medication dosages. Then stands, barring complications. He'll go home in 48 hours. Moderate activity restriction for 6 weeks. She angles her head toward the door. "Go home, Devon. Shower. Eat something with protein. He'll sleep most of the night. You hover. You keep him awake. He heals slower." Devon skims a thumb down the glass. Koda's eyelids flutter in dream again. A paw twitches like a tap dancer counting steps. Perhaps in REM he still herds runaway wheels, never willing to quit the job halfway. Devon nods, unsure whether to laugh or sob at the thought, and finally pushes to his feet. Outside, the city's pulse is a blur of horn blasts and neon. Devon slips into his sedan, cell phone vibrating non-stop with texts from a running club, colleagues at the architecture firm, even his ex who never used to call after dark. News outlets have traced Koda's rabies tag to the Northbridge shelter database. Interview requests stack up like traffic on a freeway bottleneck. Devon sets the phone on silent. He drives home through streets that look strangely foreign, colored by the knowledge that heroism can burst unannounced from everyday corners. At the apartment, modest but cozy, he flicks on a lamp and the warm filament glow spills across hardwood floors. Koda's empty bed in the corner yawns like an open question. Devon showers on autopilot, letting hot water drum tension from muscle fibers. He dresses in sweats, tosses a microwavable burrito into the oven, then sits at the kitchen island staring at nothing while the digital timer counts down. At precisely midnight a small chime pings, someone at the door. When he peers through the peephole, he finds Carlos Alvarez clutching a bakery box tied with twine. Carlos's eyes glisten as he steps inside. Devon recognizes shock in the man's stiff shoulders. The delayed quake after direct encounter with mortality. The wheelchair victim's gratitude spills in breathless syllables too rapid to catalog. Eventually he sets the bakery box on the counter, lifts the lid to reveal an assortment of hand-piped cupcakes, caramel drizzle, toasted coconut, edible gold sprinkles. "I don't cook," Carlos explains, almost apologetic, "but frosting therapy is a thing for me. I needed to do something." They sit opposite each other, two strangers bound by animal intervention, and unwrapped sugary confections. Devon recounts the veterinary prognosis. Carlos shakes his head repeatedly as if still pushing away vision of pond water swallowing him whole. "My nieces," he says abruptly. "I promised them paddle boats tomorrow evening. Can't let a runaway chair rob them of that." Devon half smiles, understanding how survival churns weird obligations back to the surface. Eventually Carlos clears his throat. "I work in tech investment," he begins, then pauses, gauging Devon's reaction. "We've been exploring adaptive safety devices, autonomous braking systems for wheelchairs, similar to those in baby strollers. Your dog's heroic skate stop, I keep thinking if a sensor could do that before an animal had to." Devon's brows climb. Carlos continues, voice gaining momentum. "I want to fund development, but integrating AI on small-scale mobility aids is tricky. The story of Koda will slice through red tape, emotion drives innovation. I'd like to propose a partnership. I bankroll prototype research. You and Koda become field ambassadors." He spreads palms like winglets of possibility. Devon exhales slowly, mind ricocheting from shock to intrigue. "Let's talk," he says. Though Koda handles the public relations, he's the charismatic one. They share a quiet laugh colored with relief. The cupcakes disappear crumb by crumb until only metallic liners remain on the countertop, reflecting overhead light like tiny satellite dishes. Morning loosens gray fingers across the skyline when Devon finally tumbles into bed. Sunbeams pry through blinds an hour later, etching linear Morse code onto the comforter. He sits up groggy, aware of one truth screaming louder than any alarm. The world has discovered Koda. Phone notifications flood again. A CNN producer offers a primetime segment. A late-night host tweets a playful challenge, Koda versus my record for fastest friction stop, bring him on the show. Animal welfare organizations request guest appearances at fundraisers. A pet tech startup sends a sponsorship pitch promising lifetime gourmet kibble. Devon scrolls until the screen blurs. It isn't that he mistrusts media, he just worries about the noise swallowing the nuance. Turning Koda into a meme stripped of context, just another viral sensation eclipsed by tomorrow's novelty. He tugs on running shoes, laces them with maybe too much tension, and heads for the door. He jogs 6 city blocks until lungs sear, then loops back, the vacant leash clipped to his belt swinging like phantom weight. When he arrives at the animal hospital, headlines already cluster on foyer monitors. Pitbull redeems breed's reputation. 4-legged linebacker tackles runaway wheelchair. Devon signs visitor logs and is waved down the hall by a receptionist whose grin bursts like confetti. In recovery, Koda's ears perk at the sound of Devon's footfall, clips of toenails on kennel glass like a miniature marimba. The dog struggles upright, tail batting faint thuds. Dr. Harper steps out from behind a medication cart. He ate breakfast, she announces, and tried to steal the neighbor puppy's blanket. So I'd say pain management is working. Devon kneels, forehead pressed to kennel door. Hey, champ, he murmurs, voice fuzzy with tenderness. Koda plants both paws on the door, licking the seam where metal meets plexiglass. Dr. Harper tilts her head. I can fast-track discharge if you promise crate rest at home. She offers, gloved hands resting lightly on her hips. Devon nods fervently, but Dr. Harper lifts one brow. Remember, public demand will be relentless. Humans tend to love stories more than the beings inside them. Protect him. Devon's throat tightens. I will, he vows, and means it with marrow-deep conviction. By late afternoon, Koda is escorted through the hospital lobby. A wide red bandage wrapped around his torso like a champion's sash. Half the staff lines the corridor. Applause echoing off tiled walls. Someone sticks a bow tie collar, sky blue with white paw prints, around his neck. Koda cocks his head, unsure whether it's edible. Outside, cameras wait like a phalanx of curious cicadas. Lenses buzzing. Devon pauses at the threshold, one hand on Koda's collar. The dog's breathing is calm, but his gaze flicks between silhouettes, reading energy levels the way some people read barcodes. Devon inhales steady courage. Ready? He whispers. Koda's tail swishes. They exit into the flashbulb staccato. Journalists unleash verbal torrents, yet Devon hears only fragments. Devon, any comment on Koda's training regimen? Will you accept endorsements? Do you think this changes public perception of pitbulls? Devon raises a palm for quiet and surprises himself by stepping up to the row of microphones. He speaks not as a trainer or influencer but as a man indebted to the unspoken moral strength of his companion. Koda didn't do this for a headline. He begins, voice steady. He saw kinetic danger and filled the gap with muscle and heart. If you want to honor him, support your local shelter, foster a dog, teach empathy. His words ripple across the crowd like invisible braille. We're grateful, but we're also private citizens. Koda needs rest. Thank you. He guides the pitbull toward the car, ignoring follow-up questions that pepper their backs. Inside the vehicle, he clicks Koda's harness into a crash-tested seatbelt adapter, habit born of obsessive safety after losing a friend in a rollover accident years prior. Koda curls onto a memory foam mat, sighing a content exhale that ruffles Devon's sleeve. On the drive home, Devon muses over Carlos's adaptive braking idea, Dr. Harper's cautionary advice, the digital avalanche clamoring for a piece of their day. A traffic light turns red, glowing like a cosmic period at the end of a run-on sentence. Devon glances back. Koda watches him with eyes that seem to glow amber under cabin lights. Pupils wide yet peaceful. At the apartment, Devon carries Koda up one flight despite vet clearance to walk. He lays the dog gently on a plush bed flanked by chew toys and chilled water. Evening bruises the horizon. Wind rattles the window panes as though reminding them how everything began. Devon fetches his laptop, opens a blank document, and types a title. Momentum Matters, Design Proposal for Autonomous Wheelchair Braking inspired by Koda. He writes until the words jitter together. A blueprint stitched with gratitude. Koda awakens from a nap around midnight. He wanders to the balcony door, tail giving a single wag. Devon follows, sliding glass open to the hush of half-asleep city. Lights shimmer across rooftops, distant sirens wail lullabies for insomnia. Devon crouches beside him, shoulder touching fur. You want the park back? Huh? He whispers. Koda's gaze traces constellations of street lamps that dot the park perimeter far across town. Devon imagines the path like a silver ribbon where leaves still scamper in the evening breeze, waiting to remember courage pressed into pavement. And somewhere in that hush, between the rustle of urban air and the dog's steady breathing, Devon feels the pivot of a new trajectory. As clear and inexorable as the moment a runaway wheelchair met 70 pounds of pitbull resolve. He doesn't know where media or venture capital or animal welfare campaigns will carry them. But he knows dawn will break. And when it does, the leash will drape across his hip once more. And together he and Koda will jog not for headlines or algorithms but for the pure communion of bodies aligned in purpose. The heroic tackle will blur into muscle memory. Bones will knit stronger at fracture lines. And the park, ordinary again, We'll stand ready for whatever gust of chance tries to rewrite physics the next time wind decides to toy with gravity." Koda leans into Devon's side, a weight both gentle and mighty. Devon slips an arm around the dog's shoulders, pressing a silent promise into bristled fur, to keep stride with courage wherever it runs. To guard the guardian when crowds clamor too loud. And to remember that sometimes the simplest sprint can unravel catastrophe. Above them, a plane drags across the sky blinking red, a distant marker of souls rushing elsewhere. Devon follows it until it fades into starlight, then returns inside, closing the balcony door against the chill. Koda pads back to bed, circles once, and drops with a grunt of satisfaction. Night deepens, but inside the apartment, hope glows like a tungsten filament refusing to burn out. Somewhere downtown, engineers pull an all-nighter sketching prototype sensors. Across the river, a talk show host jots punchlines that steer clear of petty stereotypes. And in a dozen households, children fall asleep clutching stuffed dogs newly christened Koda, dreaming of brave beasts who intercept danger. Tiny hearts recalibrate, one dream at a time. Dawn filters through a gauze of cirrus clouds, its first light tinting the horizon the pale pink of seashell interiors. And even before the alarm chirps, Devon is awake, heartbeat loud in the hush. Koda dozes in his orthopedic nest, one ear flopped inside out like a crumpled kite, chest rising in steady waves. The dog's ribs are still bandaged, a scarlet stripe hidden beneath clean gauze. Yet the bruising models less angrily today, yellow beginning to eclipse purple. Devon tiptoes to the kitchen where the coffee maker clicks alive, water whispering through grounds, the aroma wrapping the small apartment in roasted comfort. While steam fogs the window above the sink, Devon opens the laptop left hibernating on the island, the proposal file waiting in a blinking cursor pause. Overnight emails have multiplied like gremlins. A biomechanics lab at Stanford offering to 3D print wheel hub sensors. A documentary filmmaker pitching a feature called Momentum of Mercy. A politely urgent message from a national Pitbull advocacy group wanting Koda as ambassador for a cross-country tour. Devon scrolls until the words blur, then sets the cup beside the keyboard and forces himself to breathe deep. One thing at a time, he reminds himself, still tasting the echo of Dr. Harper's caution, protect him. Koda shuffles into the doorway, nails tick-ticking on wood. His leash dangles on the wall hook, nylon webbing looped into familiar arcs. Devon kneels, fingers ruffling fur behind intact ribs. Voice a soft rumble. They won't run today, but the pair settles into a sunrise ritual anyway. The balcony door opens, letting spring air roll through like an unscored overture. City smells braided with magnolia bloom from the courtyard below. Koda rests his chin on the balcony railing, surveying pigeon traffic the way a general surveys cavalry. Tail wagging slow semaphore. An hour later, Devon locks the apartment and guides Koda down the stairwell, careful on each step, until they emerge into a freshly washed street glistening from pre-dawn sprinklers. A rideshare slides to the curb, hybrid motor humming like a parent trying not to wake a baby. The driver, a young woman sporting a service dog pin on her visor, greets them by name. Evidently the app flagged the trip as priority for an injured canine. She has spread a fleece blanket over the backseat. Koda climbs aboard with dignified precision, turns a single circle, and folds into repose. Their destination sits in a renovated loading dock along the riverfront, a startup incubator called Hatchworks, where Carlos Alvarez has rented a cavernous bay to birth the first prototype of Project Brakewing. The building smells of cedar planks, ozone from laser cutters, and faint espresso. Devon's sneakers squeak on polished concrete as he and Koda step into the open space. Engineers in hoodies flit between workstations lined with oscilloscopes and thermoform printers. Overhead, drone delivery pods on test rails whir like suppressed bees. Carlos bounds from behind a workstation, excitement sparking his every gesture. In 24 frenetic hours he has assembled a Skunk Works dream team, an MIT-trained mechanical engineer named Ji Woo, a former NASA propulsion fluidics specialist called Ortiz, and a robotics grad student dubbed Pixel who once hacked her Roomba into an autonomous cat entertainer. Carlos introduces them in a tumble of syllables, then waves Devon and Koda toward the centerpiece, a stripped-down wheelchair frame mounted on a treadmill angled to simulate downhill grade. At either hub, silvery discs catch the ceiling lights, encoders married to gyroscopic sensors capable of detecting runaway velocity in under 50 milliseconds. Koda sniffs the machinery, nostrils flaring, tail wagging. Pixel kneels to scratch behind his ear, murmuring about real-world validation data. Devon eyes the treadmill contraption with a mixture of awe and anxiety. Carlos claps once, pulling focus. The first bench test is scheduled in 2 hours. He explains, local news has been invited, along with a single park official whose permission will be vital for live trials. Devon's stomach performs a sour flip, public exposure again, this time under fluorescent glare. Koda senses the tension, nudging his leg, warm breath grounding Devon in the present moment. Bench test hour arrives swift as a thrown boomerang. Woo calibrates the algorithm while Ortiz checks torque thresholds, fingers darting across a tablet interface. Pixel lugs a stack of foam bricks, assembling them at treadmill's end to cushion any crash. Devon stands at Koda's side, one hand curled around the dog's harness. Cameras roll, their tally lights tiny red stars. Ortiz lifts a hand and begins the countdown. Motors whine, treadmill belt accelerates, the wheelchair frame squeaks forward. 30 inches per second, 40, 50. The prototype sensors sniff velocity climbing beyond safe limits, and LED blooms green to yellow to red. A mechanical chirp bursts from the hub, micro calipers deploy, pinching rotor discs. The wheelchair decelerates in a smooth glide, halting atop the treadmill like a bird landing on water. Applause breaks in clusters. Someone whoops. Cameras capture Devon exhaling for the first time in half a minute. Pixel bounces on the balls of her feet, eyes shining. She replays the sensor logs, confirming thresholds triggered at precisely 48 inches per second. Well within design tolerance. Carlos high-fives anyone within radius. But Woo tampers enthusiasm. They still need real-world terrain tests, varying asphalt textures, unexpected crosswinds, before calling it a success. Devon nods soberly, recalling how random that gust had been. How a tree-lined lane funneled wind into a bullet. Break time arrives. News crews pack for afternoon broadcast. Koda, designated morale officer, roams the workspace accepting chin scratches and morsels of turkey jerky. Woo kneels to affix a GoPro to Koda's harness for field of view footage. The pity stands patient, tail making cursive loops in the air. By late afternoon, the team caravans to Brookwood Park, returning to the very slope that wrote the legend. Clouds bloat above the treetops like overfilled sails, threatening rain. The city has cordoned the path with caution tape. A single bright orange ramp divides pedestrian lanes for the demo. A small bleacher hosts municipal reps, tech bloggers, and a group of wheelchair users invited as consulting voices. Devon spots Mrs. Garraway, the gray-haired tourist who first gasped 2 days before. She clutches a picnic blanket, eyes brimming with shy excitement. The test protocol is simple. Ortiz will occupy the chair, belt strapped, helmet secure. At the apex, Woo will engage freewheel. The algorithm will judge descent speed, activating brake modules if safe thresholds breach. Koda and Devon stand to one side as observers. Though Koda's heroics inspired the tech, today he rests in advisory capacity. Ortiz rolls to starting position. Cameras multitude. A hush ripples across bystanders. Echo of communion. Woo signals and releases the manual brake. Gravity seizes the chair. Bearings whir. Everyone holds breath. Halfway down, a rogue gust snatches a cluster of helium balloons from a vendor near the pond. The bouquet arcs overhead, their silvery skins glinting like small moons. Startled, Ortiz reflexively twitches the joystick, useless under freewheel. The chair yaws slightly left, trajectory veering off chalked lane toward softer grass. Sensors misinterpret lateral slide as wheel slippage, causing a split-second hesitation. Devon's pulse spikes. Koda stiffens, nostrils flaring, muscles ready to ignite. Before instinct propels him, the sensor package recovers orientation data, cross-checks yaw against velocity, and slams micro calipers on both hubs. Sparks spatter like fireflies. The chair grinds to standstill 6 feet shy of the pond's curb. Nose pointed askew. Applause explodes. Frantic and slightly hysterical, Ortiz raises both hands, helmet askew, grin crooked with adrenaline. Ji-woo pumps a fist skyward. A small victory salute. Devon inhales, tension dissolving like salt and water. He feels Koda's muscles unclench beneath his palm. A park warden with clipboard rushes to shake Carlos's hand. Voice hurtling words about municipal interest in pilot programs. Reporters swarm Ji-woo for sound bites on fail-safe redundancy. None notice Koda edging toward the balloon vendors dangling strings. Investigating potential new enemies. Devon chuckles, retrieving the dog before helium chaos starts anew. Evening paints long lavender streaks as the crowd disperses. A thunderhead blooms on the western fringe. Distant rumbles promising overnight rain. The tech team packs equipment into vans. Carlos lingers, debriefing with the wheelchair consultants. Gleaning feedback about seat vibration and braking jerk. Devon stands nearby listening, not just hearing but absorbing lived experience. He realizes how the prototype, if perfected, might liberate thousands from subtle fear. From the hidden calculation every wheelchair user must run when a slope appears. Rain begins as a gentle patter that turns glossy paths into mirrors. Devon, Koda, and Carlos share a canopy of umbrellas back to the parking loop. Before parting, Carlos presses a laminated pass into Devon's hand. Invitation to a tech conference keynote next month where you will unveil Brakewing. Devon hesitates. Cameras, crowds, chaos. Carlos reads the worry. We'll fly under the radar. He says softly. Minimal spectacle. Maximum purpose. Devon finally nods. Koda climbs into the sedan. Curls into habitual donut shape. Eyelids heavy after sensory overload. Wipers swish rhythmically. Painting arcs of clarity on windshield as amber street lamps smear across wet glass like impressionist brushstrokes. Devon drives slower than usual, mindful of slick pavement, but inside he feels velocity of a different sort, the acceleration of cause following catalyst. At home, Koda devours dinner with the gusto of an animal who nearly lost appetite to emergency painkillers. Devon reheats leftover lentil soup, reviews footage from the GoPro. Marvels at how the dog's head barely wobbled during the test run. Ears swiveling like parabolic receivers. He uploads a montage of sensor angle shots to the confidential shared drive for engineers to analyze wheel oscillations. The file begins syncing, green progress bar creeping, and Devon steps onto the balcony for air. Rain glitters against sodium streetlights, each droplet an incandescent dot briefly alive before shattering on pavement. Devon thinks about narratives. How easily public fascination can pivot from reverence to scrutiny. Already online comments oscillate between praising Pitbull heroism and accusing Devon of milking tragedy for profit. In one thread, an anonymous user claims the event was staged, citing the presence of a teenager conveniently filming vertical footage. Devon shakes head, yet the troll's words crumble something inside him, leaving gritty sand he cannot quite rinse out. Inside, phone buzzes with another request. A morning show wants Devon and Koda for a live segment featuring service dogs turned heroes. Devon drafts a polite decline. Each refusal chips away at guilt. What if public attention could funnel donations to shelters? But Dr. Harper's words echo, guard the guardian. Devon opens Koda's crate door, inviting the dog to sleep closer. Koda lumbers over, collapses with a satisfied sigh. Chin resting across Devon's ankle like a paperweight of trust. Rain drums the roof, a lullaby older than language. Morning breaks caffeine bright. Devon checks Koda's bandage, healing nicely. Edges pink but not angry. They head to Dr. Harper for follow-up X-ray. Clinic lobby hosts a new poster on the bulletin board, a snapshot of Koda mid-tackle. Caption reading sometimes superheroes wear fur. A donation jar beneath overflows with spare change and folded bills. Harper chuckles when she sees Devon's face redden. Public sentiment can save kennels. She nods, gesturing to the jar. Let them love him. The new radiograph shows fracture knitting well. Harper clears Koda for light jogging in 2 weeks. Instructs Devon to continue NSAIDs and hydrotherapy if available. On the way out, a family arrives clutching a brindle pity puppy scheduled for vaccines. Koda's presence helps the skittish pup calm. A gentle baton pass of breed ambassadorship. Devon feels a warm coil of pride inside his chest. Outside the clinic, Devon's phone rings from an unrecognized number. He nearly lets it slide to voicemail. But intuition flicks on. A voice introduces herself as Marisol Kane, investigative reporter for the Chronicle. She requests an interview on improved regulations for mobility devices citywide, citing Brakewing's pilot as tipping point. Devon hesitates, but she promises a thoughtful piece focusing on policy rather than viral spectacle. He agrees to coffee the next afternoon, contingent on Koda joining. At the cafe meeting, Marisol surprises Devon with depth of research. She quotes pedestrian accident statistics. Notes that runaway wheelchairs cause more visits annually than rollerblades. Her questions aim at solutions, not sound bites. Koda curls beneath the patio table, periodically peeking up for pastry crumbs, winning Marisol's heart with a single head tilt. She asks permission to embed with the Brakewing team through final certification tests. Devon refers her to Carlos, but senses synergy. Before leaving, Marisol confides she's allergic to sensationalism, calling it intellectual sugar rush. Devon smiles, feeling kinship. Days pirouette into a disciplined routine. Mornings at Hatchworks refining algorithm. Afternoons hydrotherapy at an aquatics rehab pool. Evenings scripting policy proposals with Carlos via shared whiteboard. Koda accompanies everywhere, sometimes wearing a soft shell harness with embroidered wording, not a mascot. A teammate. Engineers fall into habit of greeting the dog before each other, as though he's chief morale officer. The sensor housing evolves from bulky aluminum to sleek carbon composite. Battery life doubles. Firmware updates flow like river water. Pixel codes a playful Easter egg when sensors initialize. The brake modulators emit a two-note chime pitched to mimic a certain pitty bark pattern recorded from Koda. The first time it chips through the lab speakers, everyone grins like kids spotting the ice cream truck. Momentum attracts scrutiny. A rival startup, Slope Safe, publishes a press release accusing Brakewing of overstating success rates, citing untested variables and canine-centric marketing spin. Blogs seize the snark. A heated subreddit thread claims Project Brakewing is corporate appropriation of heroism narrative. Devon reads the vitriol at midnight, shoulders knots tightening. He drafts but deletes replies, remembering the adage that resting with trolls only dirties both parties. Koda senses the tension. During late-night code reviews, he rests his head on Devon's thigh until breathing slows. The dog's presence becomes a neurological metronome, regulating stress. Devon begins meditating at dawn with Koda lying parallel, matching inhales. Each sunrise feels less like a battlefield muster and more like a continuum of layered possibilities. The conference looms. Koda's 6-week restriction ends precisely 2 days before. Dr. Harper, after one more scan, clears him for full activity under observation. She winks, telling Devon the dog's skeleton looks Fort Knox sturdy. Conference organizers, apprised of Koda's attendance, set aside a green room suite replete with plush mat and noise-dampening walls. The convention center awes with its scale, glass atriums climbing 5 stories. Escalators crisscrossing like arteries. Banners flutter overhead proclaiming adaptive tech horizons. Inside the keynote hall, rows of seats vanish into darkness. Spotlights stipple the stage. Carlos paces backstage, rehearsing slides. Devon kneels, whispering to Koda beyond the curtain. Keynote begins. Carlos strides into light, voice carrying confidence lacquered with gratitude. He recounts the wheelchair incident, plays the viral clip, then dims lights to show graphs of injury statistics. Animation of Brakewing's gyroscopic brake. Audience murmurs ripple. Finally he gestures stage right where Devon and Koda enter. Applause swells, a wave cresting then crashing into whistles. Koda sits center stage, head high yet calm, bandana emblazoned with Hatchworks logo. Carlos explains the sensor algorithm owes initial logic to analysis of Koda's wheel intercept, force vectors. Deceleration curve, proving biology can teach engineering. A hush falls as lights dim for demonstration. A ramp materializes on stage, without occupant. The prototype chair rolls down. Sensors engage, halting at tape mark. Applause roars. Carlos switches to final slide. Partnership invitations for municipalities. When lights restore, Koda stands, tail helicoptering. A portion of the audience stands too, ovation. Devon fights tears. Cameras capture his damp lashes. This time he does not shy away. Post-keynote reception blurs into handshakes, business cards, flashes. Yet the most poignant moment is small. A teenage girl in powered wheelchair navigates through throng. Her t-shirt reading "Science saves spines." She hovers beside Koda, voice tremulous, asking to pet. With gentle permission, she strokes his cheek, whispering thank you in a cadence as if speaking to a fellow traveler who understands friction against wheels and gravity. Devon swallows hard. This, not applause, is the ballast. Back in the green room, Devon collapses onto the couch. Koda hopping beside, head on lap. Carlos bursts in, eyes alight, holding letter of intent from 3 cities. Yet he tempers triumph by acknowledging pushback from Slope Safe will intensify. Devon shrugs. Momentum rarely sails without headwinds. That night in hotel suite, Devon orders room service salmon for himself, grilled chicken breast for Koda. They dine by sliding door. Cityscape luminous beyond glass. News segments already air conference highlights. Devon mutes television, preferring the sound of Koda chewing contentedly. He types a journal entry, capturing sensory details. The static rise of applause. Carbon fiber whir. The look in that teenager's eyes. He closes with a sentence. Heroism is not the end of a story but the first domino of change. Weeks slide by in montage rhythm. Municipal contracts formalize pilot rollouts. Brakewing version 2 enters small batch production. Slope Safe files an injunction claiming patent overlap, forcing depositions and stress. During the legal swirl, a gusty afternoon unseats a Brakewing-equipped rental chair at Seaview Boardwalk. Sensors halt at 6 feet before a stairwell. Eyewitnesses filming. The clip goes viral, echoing the original. Public opinion swings harder in Brakewing's favor. Slope Safe quietly withdraws suit. Media moments still surface, but by now Devon manages them with boundaries. He agrees to an NPR interview recorded in Hatchworks test loop, where the host kneels beside Koda, praising his calm charisma. Devon talks about design rooted in empathy, about bridging biology with algorithm, about how a dog's intuitive decision became blueprint for mechanical compassion. Late August drapes the city in heat thick as velvet. Devon and Koda resume dawn runs at half-marathon length. Koda's ribs long-heeled, his stride elastic. They finish near the pond. Dew pearls on grass, and Devon unclips leash, allowing off-duty roam. Koda ambles toward dock, sniffs breeze. A boy in bright orange life vest waves, recognizing the dog from news. His parents allow approach. Koda licks sunscreen from the boy's fingers, eliciting giggles. Devon sits on dock edge, shoes dangling above rippling water, reflecting on trajectories. If not for one gust of wind, Koda might have finished that Sunday jog unremarkable. No Brakewing, no conference, no policy drafts queued before city councils. Yet maybe something else would have kindled. They were already fused pair, ready to funnel courage somewhere. Koda pads back, damp nose tapping Devon's shoulder. Together they watch sunlight spill coins across the pond. Devon leans sideways until forehead rests against canine skull. A gentle hush settles, that rare pocket of time where nothing clatters for attention, where gravity feels negotiable, and every breath affirms a simple theorem. Momentum guided by compassion can rewrite physics of fear. Far beyond treeline, a breeze musters, leaves stir in a pre-autumn tremor. Devon stands, brushes dock dust from shorts. He calls for Koda in voice bright with anticipation. They jog home under broadening sky. Pulse and paw beat forming a metronome for the future. Thump, thump, thump. Each strike a vow that machines and animals and people will keep intercepting runaway wheels. That empathy can be machined if first modeled by muscle and heart. And that sometimes the most heroic race is the quiet dash toward whatever still needs saving. The day opens wide, waiting for the next gust, the next problem to wrestle, the next line of code to echo a dog's split-second wisdom. And 2 silhouettes, one human, one Pitbull, thread the park's ribbon of path. Ready. A gauzy veil of Indian summer haze hangs over the city, wrapping chimneys and treetops in a silver bloom that feels more dream than weather. The year has spun almost a full revolution since a gust of wind swept an empty wheelchair down a park slope and persuaded a blue brindle Pitbull named Koda to rewire destiny. In that orbit of seasons, the dog's single tackle has rippled outward through conference halls and council chambers, through engineering labs and elementary school classrooms, through policy briefings and dinner table debates, until the moment feels less like an incident than an axis around which disparate ambitions now revolve. In late September, Devon traces a finger along a wall calendar dotted with color-coded stickers that look, to the uninitiated, like confetti after a parade. Each sticker marks a milestone: the day Brakewing won its first municipal bid. The morning Marisol Kane's Chronicle exposé coaxed legislators to draft slope safety guidelines. The afternoon Slope Safe withdrew its lawsuit and signed a licensing partnership that will let its patents fold into Koda's lineage rather than claw at it. One square near October's edge glows fluorescent green. Devon circles that date again for good measure. Though the ink has already seeped deep: National Disability Rights Rally, Capitol Mall, main stage keynote. He steps back, exhales, and studies the living room. Stacks of Brakewing brochures lean like half-finished card houses against sofa legs. A garment bag containing Devon's only tailored suit hangs from a floor lamp. The sleeve bulges where Koda teethed the plastic zipper earlier in the week. On the coffee table sits a boxy prototype of Brakewing Jr., engineered for pediatric wheelchairs, its carbon composite hubs gleaming under lamplight. Devon's gaze wavers between the polished tech artifact and the scuffed rubber Kong toy lying nearby, still bearing the faint indent of canine incisors. The juxtaposition feels apt: refinement nestling up to raw instinct, silicon brain hugging muscle heart. From the hallway drifts the muffled gurgle of a fountain. When Devon adopted Koda, he installed a miniature water cascade in the spare room to soothe the dog during thunderstorms. Now the trickle feels like ambient punctuation to every email and code review. A reminder that progress must flow even when skies rumble. Footfall pads across hardwood. Koda ambles into view. Graying muzzle darkened momentarily by shadow. Age has begun bookmarking pages in his anatomy, slight clouding at the pupils. A slower rise from naps, but the dog still carries himself with the alertness of an athlete whose body remembers glory intimately and refuses full retirement. Devon crouches, threading fingertips through Koda's softened fur. The dog leans into the contact, exhaling a puff of air that smells faintly of peanut butter treats. Devon murmurs about upcoming travel and rally crowds and promises of hotel mattresses thicker than clouds. Koda answers with a tail thwap against Devon's knee. And in that padded percussion Devon hears all the reassurance he needs. Wherever you step, I step too. 3 days later they board an overnight train bound for the capital, eschewing faster air routes for the steady lull of steel wheels and the practical bonus that Koda can stretch beneath foot-warmed carpet instead of navigating TSA queues. Devon surrenders to the cadence of rails and the soft snore of his companion. Outside, midnight eclipses small towns and open farmland, their sodium halos skimming past windows like distant galaxies. Devon opens a dog-eared journal and harvests sentences seated in his head for weeks. Lines about inertia and empathy, about wheels and wings, about how humans copy bravery and code but still require living templates. Words spool until fatigue dims the handwriting into indecipherable ivy. They wake to sunrise fanning molten gold across grain silos. The conductor, having recognized the television hero curled beneath Devon's seat, brings extra bacon from the dining car and confesses her sister relies on a wheelchair she fears taking near sloping sidewalks. Devon scribbles a name and email onto a ticket stub so the woman can sign up for the Brakewing early adopter program. Koda, oblivious to the networking, chews bacon in slow ecstasy. By noon the train glides beneath vaulted station arches frescoed with soot and light. The city bustles outside, pre-rally tension thrumming like power lines. Carlos waits at the platform, crisp linen jacket offset by sneakers dusted with coffee roast hues. He waves a placard reading "Welcome, Momentum Crew," as if greeting a rock band. Behind him hover Woo and Pixel, each juggling duffels of sensors and presenters' laptops. They usher Devon and Koda into a rideshare van whose side panels bear a decal of the Brakewing emblem, stylized wings sprouting from a minimalist wheel. The driver recognizes the logo instantly and offers a discounted fare. Momentum. It seems. A cruise fringe benefits. Hotel check-in feels like wading through a carnival of name tags, lanyards, and expectant nods. Devon cuts a path to the reserved suite where an orthopedic dog bed waits near floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Capitol dome like an ivory chess piece. Koda inspects the view, nose fogging glass, then circles his bed 3 times before claiming ownership. Devon unzips luggage, pressing the iron's hot plate against his wrinkled suit while rehearsal schedules trickle in via group chat. Evening will feature a walkthrough on the mall. Tomorrow afternoon opens with the keynote. A candlelight vigil at dusk will honor individuals lost to mobility-related accidents over the past decade. The itinerary humbles Devon. He wonders whether he has words capacious enough to fill such vaulted intention. They convene at the rally grounds as twilight descends. Temporary fencing outlines grassy quadrants, and volunteers string LED fairy lights along wheelchair-accessible ramps. Giant screens test cycle captioning software. A sign language interpreter practices fluid arcs beneath spotlight. Hands painting phantom phrases. Koda trots beside Devon, sniffing cables and lighting trusses. Tail gently wagging as if blessing the enterprise. In the hush before crowds arrive, the sight feels like an unplayed symphony. Each speaker stack an accessibility ramp, a dormant instrument awaiting baton. The next day dawns bright and saturated with possibility. As though the sun itself signed an endorsement contract. Devon slips into his suit, smoothing lapels while Koda inspects him. Head tilted, pocketing a thumb drive loaded with rehearsal slides. Devon experiences the odd sensation of meeting his own reflection in the mirror and finding someone else, an advocate instead of a runner. A steward of policies instead of personal bests. He adjusts the team pin on his lapel. A miniature Brakewing wheel backed by twin wings. Silver catching light like a captured comet. Hours later, backstage humidity beads on forearms despite the crisp autumn breeze. Devon strokes Koda's head to steady his pulse. Out front, tens of thousands wheel, walk, or sit cross-legged on blankets. A tapestry of lived experience threaded with banners that read access is a right. Not a luxury and nothing about us without us. The MC cues a video montage on Jumbotron screens. A collage of runaway incidents, engineering breakthroughs, and finally Koda's tackle filmed in slow motion, accompanied by a cello swell that climbs right into collective hearts. Applause ripples like sudden rain on rooftops. The MC's voice carries next, announcing, "Please welcome Devon Mallory and Koda, the inspiration behind Brakewing Technologies." Devon steps into light, Koda alongside. A current surges, applause. Cheers. The raspy chant of schoolchildren who traveled overnight. Devon waits until sound subsides. Enough for silence to gather weight. He speaks about ordinary Sundays and gusts of wind that rewrite priorities. He weaves the physics of deceleration with the ethics of designing from empathy outward. He quotes the mother of a 5-year-old girl whose wheelchair rolled off a boat ramp last spring. A tragedy Brakewing Jr. hopes never to repeat. He draws a metaphor between muscle fiber microtears and civic growth. Both hurt. Both rebuild stronger. He thanks engineering partners and policy champions, but reserves final gratitude for the brindle silhouette sitting calmly at his side, whose choice under pressure mapped new cartography for urban safety. When he finishes, the interpreter renders applause for deaf attendees, hands aloft, fingers fluttering like butterflies. Koda stands, gives a single bark, and the crowd erupts again. Carlos joins them, followed by Ji-Woo wheeling in the newest prototype. The MC invites wheelchair users on stage for a ceremonial first roll. Among them is Mrs. Garraway, holding a carved walking stick, and the teenager who filmed the original incident, now sporting a press badge. A line of participants makes the gentle descent. Brakewing modules engaging softly, each stop greeted by cheers that sound like notes of a song people did not realize they all knew. The candlelight vigil arrives after sunset. Hundreds of LED candles dot the lawn, tiny galaxies mirroring the first stars overhead. A choir sings a lullaby in layered harmony no microphone distorts. Devon stands with Marisol, who prepares a long-form piece on the rally. Tape recorder blinking. Koda, wearing a fleece bandage over his once fractured ribs though he no longer needs it, sits between them, Chin on pause. Names of the fallen roll across screens. Malia Chen. 8. Oregon, Hector Ruiz. 64. New Mexico, Janelle Harper. 31. Illinois. Each name accompanied by a short biography and the phrase "May momentum guard those who roll after us." Tears track across faces. Strangers clasp hands. Devon glimpses Ji Woo wiping a cheek. Sees Carlos bite the inside of his lip. The choir's final note hangs. Gravity defying, then melts into night's hush. Back at the hotel, exhaustion lays its heavy cloak across shoulders. Devon peels away suit layers. Unclips Koda's service harness. Lets it fall onto the carpet like an exhaled thought. He kneels to eye level. Forehead against broad canine skull. "We did it," he whispers, not victory but continuation. As if each achievement births the next responsibility. Koda breathes a soft woof. Licks Devon's chin, then pads to the balcony door. Devon opens it. City lights shimmer below like scattered gemstones. And somewhere near the reflecting pool, rally crews fold chairs, but candles still glow in clusters. Vigil stars that refuse to wink out. Time tumbles forward. Winter etches frost onto Hatchworks windows. Brakewing prototypes seed themselves in 5 pilot cities. Early data posts a 52% reduction in slope-related incidents. Pixel programs an open-source APIs so independent developers can build door sensor integrations and haptic alerts. Ji Woo publishes a white paper linking Brakewing's control algorithms to avian wing articulation patterns. The thesis lands in Nature Robotics, sparking cross-disciplinary think pieces. Meanwhile, Koda becomes, to everyone's surprise, a mentor. Hatchworks establishes a canine-assisted program to socialize rescue dogs alongside mobility device training. Twice a week, Devon and Koda oversee sessions where Labradors, Shepherd mixes, and the occasional retired racing greyhound learn to pace beside wheelchairs, fetch dropped water bottles, and even press Brakewing's manual override button with a nose nudge. At graduation, each dog receives a wing-shaped tag engraved with the motto "Momentum meets Mercy." Koda ages, yes, but with a dignity that seems carved from cedar. His muzzle whitens fully, his gait shortens, yet his eyes keep that sulfur-amber glow of perennial curiosity. Devon scales back their jogs, trading marathons for dawn strolls alongside the river where migrating geese scribble hieroglyphs in the sky. On cool afternoons, the pair lounges on the apartment balcony. The trickling fountain now upgraded with a mossy stone where birds alight to sip. Devon sometimes reads aloud from advocacy bills during public comment draft reviews. Koda listens, head canted, as though parsing legislative syntax for hidden jokes. In late spring of the dog's 12th year, the city hosts a ceremony commemorating Brakewing's full adoption across municipal fleets. Ribbons flutter from lampposts. A mural depicting Koda's tackle gets unveiled across a community center wall. Color washed in blues and corals. Children line up to touch the painted wheel. Believing contact grants bravery. Devon and Koda watch from a patch of shade. A girl in a hot pink caster board zooms past, catches her wheel on uneven pavement, and wobbles. Without thinking, Devon half rises, but Koda's eyes track the moment calmly as the girl regains balance. Safe systems, both biological and engineered, are now on guard. Eventually, inevitably, Koda's heart decides to slow. The veterinarian, a kind woman with moon phase earrings, detects murmurs that suggest the dog's ticker has marched long and loyally but is tired of drumming the same cadence. She prescribes gentle meds, a sodium-light diet, and unlimited couch privileges. Devon moves his work laptop to the living room ottoman so his typing can provide the white noise Koda prefers while napping. On warm evenings they visit Brookwood Park. Koda walks the famous slope at half pace. Nose-tasting stories, ground still whispers, wind patterns, picnic crumbs, echoes of applause. It is 2 years after the rally. On an April afternoon mottled by sun-flecked cloud shadows, when Devon receives an email from the National Institutes of Health awarding a grant to study canine-inspired mechanical reflexes. The lead researcher credits Brakewing's open data. Devon swivels in his chair to share the news only to find Koda asleep. Paws twitching in a dream where perhaps he chases spokes again. Except this time they glow. Perhaps they sprout wings. Devon watches the gentle rise and fall. Gratitude ballooning inside ribs broad enough now to hold it. The farewell comes quietly one dawn when mist strays in from the river, softening edges of everything. Koda exhales a sigh that sounds achingly content, rests his head against Devon's foot, and drifts into a sleep that sinks deeper, then stills. Devon, heart hammered thin, wraps the dog in the blanket they've carried on every road trip. Circular paw prints worn into its flannel. He presses his forehead to Koda's and whispers thanks too vast for syllables, for the miles. The miracle, the momentum. A memorial service gathers at Hatchworks courtyard under strings of Edison bulbs. Friends, engineers, journalists, city officials, wheelchair users, shelter volunteers. They come clutching single wheels of white clover plucked from lawns, assembling them into a wreath shaped like Brakewing's logo. Marisol reads an excerpt from her article. Voice unsteady only once. Carlos announces a scholarship in Koda's name for student engineers merging biomechanics with compassionate design. Devon, standing beside the empty harness draped over a podium, tells the story one more time. But this rendition focuses on aftermaths, on domino sequences, on the idea that when courage collides with need, something larger than either springs forth. Seasons continue their wheel turn. Brakewing modules integrate into airline boarding chairs and ski lift gondola carriers. Cities embed the sensor API into smart curb infrastructure that whispers speed readouts to users via phone vibrations. Devon's hair earns silver threads, lines bracket his eyes. But every morning he jogs a gentle mile. Empty leash wound around palm. Because ritual outlives reasons. One autumn dusk, 3 years post-farewell, Devon attends a disability rights gala on the Capitol steps. He wears a lapel pin now cast in platinum, winged wheel encircling a subtle paw print. The keynote speaker, a former Marine who lost lower limb function overseas, describes the moment Brakewing halted his racing wheelchair at the top of a hospital ramp during a blackout. He references Koda by name, though the dog is gone, and the audience stands in ovation anyway. A gust of gratitude echoing across marble columns. Devon closes his eyes, imagines the tremor of Koda's tail at his calf. Afterward Devon wanders to Brookwood Park. Moonlight floods the slope where it all began, turning asphalt to pewter. He kneels, palm flat on the cool surface, and recalls the calculus of muscle, wheel, and will. Wind stirs leaves, but tonight the chair racks stand empty. Sensors waiting like sentinels. Devon feels no yearning for what-ifs, he senses presence. Not memory exactly, but kinetic echo, the certainty that something once hurled itself against rushing velocity and convinced it to hush. He stands, breathes deep, and for just a second he swears he hears claws skittering at his side. A phantom trot that syncs with his heartbeat. He begins walking toward home, heel to toe along the lane's center seam. And in the cadence of his steps lives a vow to keep guarding the guardrails. Keep fueling empathy with action. Keep listening for small gusts that whisper chances to change trajectories. Because momentum, once awakened by mercy, never truly stops. And somewhere beyond sight, Koda runs forever, wheels parting before him like water before prow. History drafting behind.